You wanted an offensive explosion? You got it. Penn State comes out and just absolutely blasts Maryland 51-15. Once again, per usual, Tim Aiden from Black Shoe Diaries. My other Black Shoe Diaries colleague, Patrick Kerbler, is over there. Patrick, sir, before we hit record, you said you got a lot of thoughts, and now everyone's going to hear about them.
Yeah, good game for Penn State. Nice bounce back after the mishmash that was last week against Indiana. Felt good to once again go into Maryland and come away with a big win. So now, I mean, we'll talk about the Maryland game, but obviously all attention for Penn State fans and for the coaches and players and everybody in the Penn State sphere and community turns to Michigan week. So we'll be fun. We'll be fun.
Indeed. But before we get to Michigan, Penn State had to make a little trip to College Park, Maryland, to take on Maryland Terrapins. This is a game that I know pretty much all except one of us in our predictions roundtable at BSD were projecting Maryland to win. We had one guy, we won't name who, but was saying Maryland to pull it out. But yeah, I agree with you, Argra. It's hard to believe people had Penn State on upset alerts. I mean, I could understand where those people are coming from, and I don't know if you watch the Late Kick with Josh Pate, Pat, or those of you that are watching us, but I know Josh Pate put today's game as an 8 as out of 10 on his upset alert meter. So I understand where they were coming from because the offense all year long it's been able to move the ball and put up points on lesser defense, but it's also just looked. It's lacked explosiveness. Maybe Drew Auer hasn't looked the most confident trying to throw it downfield. And so I understood that. And, Maryland, even though they were in a free fall coming into this game, having lost 3 straight, including back-to-back losses as double-digit favorites to Northwestern Illinois, still you have an explosive passing game that could potentially get you some quick scores and move the chains. So there was some concern going into that, but I don't know. For me, what went into my prediction, I said 34-17. That was my final prediction. What went into my head was just, I thought the Penn State defense would once again just own Maryland in the trenches, which they ended up doing. I mean, they got 6 sacks in total on Talia Tagovailoa, and just, they were able to just completely shut down the Maryland run game. And actually, I don't know if you saw, they put up a graphic on the Fox broadcast, but it was, I think, the second worst rushing performance ever in program history for Maryland. I was like, ended up being -49. Now, that's because college football, they count sacks towards your rushing yards total. I don't know why the hell they do that. NFL doesn't do that. But apparently, I guess their worst in program history was like -58 against Navy in 1965, according to the graphic they were putting on screen. So they came pretty close to rushing futility today. But despite that, early on at least, Talia was looking smooth in the passing game. He completed his first 17 passes in a row, albeit the majority of those were like quick, 5-yard, screen passes, slants, like just a one read and throw type of play. There wasn't too much of him sitting around the pocket waiting for play to develop, but he did hit a few deep balls, which led to some concern early on, but we didn't see anything like we saw against Indiana last week with busted coverages, leading to 69 or 90-yard touchdown plays. But Pat, just what was your assessment of the defense today coming into this?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good game defensively. I know one of the things that we were talking about before we hit record was that, right, if Penn State doesn't have Liam Clifford goes for a block on 4th and 21, he can't get it. He roughs the punter. Maryland keeps the drive alive to go down and score. And then Maryland's other touchdown drive is there's a 4th down pass interference call on Johnny Dixon, which keeps the drive alive. And then roughing the passer and denied to Sutton, which gives them, helps move the ball down the field. They score on that. So there's a lot of people that are saying, oh, if you don't have those penalties that, Maryland is scoreless, which maybe that's the case. But I thought that, especially compared to last year with Tele Tagovailoa, much better game. And with him, it's very much you don't know what you're going to get. Like, you could get one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country. You could get one of the bottom 5 quarterbacks in the country. He has such a wide, he can just be very good or be very bad. You don't know which one you're going to get. I thought today, I don't want to say he was good enough for Maryland to win, but he certainly was good enough to keep Maryland in the game. And defensively, Maryland just did not step up. Offensively, they just had one too many mistakes with a fumble on the second drive. On their first drive, they can't convert a 4th and 1. So, just little plays even in the beginning of the game where, if you're Maryland, you kind of need big plays to create some momentum, like we saw with Indiana against Penn State last week. Probably a big reason why they were able to stay in the game was because they got that momentum early, and Maryland just didn't have that. At the end of the first quarter, it was Penn State 14-0, and that's just it's tough to come back against any team when you're down 14-0. It's really tough to come back when you're facing this Penn State defense and a Penn State offense that looks as good as we've seen this year. I think there's still question marks about again, big playability and things like that. But, we'll get into it. But I thought that other than the West Virginia game, that's probably the best the Penn State offense has looked this year. So, all in all, good day for the Penn State defense. It does just feel like they have one series every game where, one little thing happens, a pass interference or something like that, and they completely unravel. And it's like in the span of 3 or 4 plays, it's like, oh, they're in the red zone now. But you can't complain on a day that had Penn State's defense. They finished with 6 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Especially at the end, they were able to, pick off and get a couple more interceptions. So all in all, a dominant day. And as we've been saying, I know we're rambling at this point, but as we've been saying this entire season, Penn State defense is not the issue. I'm not concerned that Penn State's defense is not good enough to win the Big Ten and to make the College Football Playoff. So hopefully that'll be the case next week against Michigan, but it's all about the offense. And today, good game for Penn State.
Absolutely. Maybe we transition and talk about the offense. I think the defensive performance speaks for itself. If you saw what we just saw, and if you pull up the stats, especially, I mean, it was one of those when it rains, it pours type situations. Once Maryland made it a 31-15 game in the fourth quarter and made it semi-interesting, right after Penn State goes down the field and just scores a touchdown, makes it 30-15. And from there, it just completely fell apart for the Terps. It just seemed like, I think the last 3 drives ended in turnovers for them. Dom DeLuca interception, and then there's a fumble recovery, and I believe another interception.
Tony Rojas with the strip sack, and then gets the interception.
So it was one of those when it rains, it pours for the defense. But yes, the offense, that was the most encouraging part I saw today. This was, Drew Allar just looked locked in and really seemed to build out that confidence he built from leading the game-winning drive against Indiana last week. Like the way he bounced back after throwing his first interception. I know we were saying last week, maybe that was a good thing for him. And yeah, I think today's performance showed that still was a good thing. You see that stat line rolling out there, but he was, 25-34, 240 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, even the incompletions, there were probably 2 or 3 that were dropped, that his stats would have looked even better. And I think, like you were saying, Pat, his best performance since the season opener against West Virginia. Also the run, it was a balanced attack. So the run game was pretty good too, especially Katron Allen, 14 carries, 91 yards. And he had just an exclamation mark of a touchdown in the fourth quarter, with his 16-point lead. Penn State's probably, they're on track to win the game, but, Allen just, I think, drags his defenders 10 yards to the end zone and just punctuates the game, puts it away. And that's just when Maryland just kind of went into quit mode after that. But so it was encouraging to see Penn State be able to pound the rock. And I know Nick Singleton didn't have the best stat line rushing wise, just 8 carries, 20 yards, but he did have a critical kickoff return right after Maryland made it a 16-point game, which, he took it into Maryland territory and gave the Lions a short field to work with. And put any notion of a miracle comeback by the Terps to sleep. So good to see that. And Keandre Lambert-Smith stepped up, did well per usual. Had nearly 100 yards catching. But Dante Cephas, this is the kind of performance we're hoping to see from him earlier in the year, but better late than never. 6 catches, 53 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. Good on the young man. He needed a game like this to establish himself, build some confidence, especially if Michigan next week on the horizon. It was just beauty to see. And of course, Tyler Warren, Theo Johnson both had catches for touchdowns themselves. So, Pat, just your thoughts about the offense, and does this give you a little more confidence going into the Michigan game next week?
I mean, it's a good thing that they, like we have been saying, that this is probably the best offensive performance, and also no surprise, but the best Drew performance that we've seen since West Virginia heading into the Michigan game. Let me tackle this piece by piece, because I have a couple thoughts, and we can kind of get into bigger discussion points on each one. First and foremost with Drew, I thought that he was as decisive and he looked as comfortable as he really has this entire season. I feel like he was anticipating much more than he has these last couple of weeks, where it felt like he was kind of trying to force things or trying to, aim the ball into certain spots where it kind of wasn't there, and he was seeing the field a lot better. And even, and granted, Maryland did not get after, him, the passer, as much as Ohio State had, but I thought that he did a much better job of feeling the pressure, not kind of letting it rattle him, and keeping his eyes downfield, right? Stepping up into the pocket, evading pressure, and, trying to find someone downfield. And if somebody wasn't open downfield, he was running the ball a little bit more. Now, some of these were quarterback draws or QB powers, but he carried the ball 4 times for 39 yards with a long of 21 yards. That long of 21 was not on a QB draw, was on kind of a little bit of a broken down play. I think Penn State wanted to run like a swing pass or a tunnel screen or something like that. It was on like a 3rd and 1, and he kept it and, saw the hole and went for it. So Penn State will need this Drew next week, right? He cannot have another Ohio State performance where he goes out there and looks, like the C- or C+ version. He really can't even have like another Indiana game. He needs to be this kind of Drew. And
our pal Marty Leafs says it. Our old pal Marty Leafs nailed it. By far best offensive performance of the season. Drew's found his effort. Let's grip it and rip it mode after getting the interception monkey off his back. Could not agree more, Marty.
Yeah, no, and that's what they will need. He was also definitely aided by, a really, really strong Keandre Lambert-Smith game, who went down with an injury but did come back into the game. I don't know how you are with injuries, Marty. I literally don't ever think the player's actually injured. Like, anytime somebody gets hurt, I see Twitter and it's like, oh no, not Keandre. I could see somebody's leg twisted sideways and be like, I don't think it's that bad. He's probably back in a couple weeks. So I was never concerned, but just for those that were, Keandre Lambert-Smith did come back into the game and was fine. Looks like he just kind of landed on his knee the wrong way, kind of bruised it, but hopefully we'll be okay. We'll be 100% for Michigan. But, Keandre Lambert-Smith, who's been very good this entire year. But, yeah, Dante Cephas is one of the main takeaways from today. It turns out that once you learn the playbook and you're comfortable with it and you know the ins and outs, that you play better. You're not thinking, right? I think so many times this year when Cephas went out there, it felt like miscommunication, especially on like 3rd downs, on those RPOs, right? He's blocking when he should be looking for the ball, or he's, the other way around. I thought that this was his cleanest game as far as, obviously catching the ball. I don't think he had any drops. Catching the ball, but also blocking and just being in the right positions and making plays when he needed to. And it all started in that first quarter on the I guess do we consider that a fade? I guess that's a fade, right? I mean,
I guess that was a fade. I mean, I know we have PTSD from watching Penn State attempt fades in the past, but that was, he's one of the few quarterbacks I'm okay with throwing fades, because he
can get that thing up there.
He just drops dimes when he drops it on the spot. So I didn't think that was a touchdown catch initially. I'm surprised
they returned that. Yeah, that was.
But then when I saw the replay more and more, and the way they're explaining, I'm like, oh, actually, maybe that is a catch. And then sure enough, they did overturn it.
After looking at it, I thought it was a catch, but I didn't think that it was necessarily because they called it incomplete on the field.
Because it wasn't like inexplicable video evidence.
Yeah.
Indisputable video evidence.
I'm pretty anti-review to begin with. I honestly would rather not even have it, as crazy as that sounds. Like
I've lived for the era of no review. Trust me.
So did I. I remember Michigan 2002. Trust me, I get it. I was a kid back then, but
I don't want to go back to that, Pat. I'm glad we have replay review, even if they do maybe look at a few too many plays. But I think that get it right.
If you're gonna have it, like this whole whatever the calls on the field, stick with it. It's like, well, okay, if we're already gonna look at this thing for 3 minutes, just go with what you think actually is more likely. If it's 60-40 that he caught it, then it's 60-40 that he caught it, and you go that he caught it. But that's a discussion. This is an off-season discussion that we will pick up later. But
I did want to touch on Drew Allar's running. I mean, I think that was a real key today for the offense to click the way to because if you're going to run this RPO system, I know Drew isn't known for his running ability, but you've got to have like a couple design draws, or runs for your quarterback. And you saw some of those for Drew, and he ripped off a couple of good ones. Even I think one of them went as long as it was 21 yards, which I think he had like part of his jersey ripped off at the end of it. But Maryland, obviously they were not prepared for that at all.
In one word, how would you describe Drew's running ability? When you watch him run, what is the word that comes to mind?
Whoa. As in whoa, I did not see that coming kind of thing.
He's certainly not fluid. I don't think anybody would confuse him for like, oh, like this guy could play tight end, but yeah, he's a big kid, he's a big boy, and yeah, once he gets moving, he can run guys over. So I mean, we've kind of seen that this year with how many rushing touchdowns does he have?
He can move well enough. He can run well enough, and he's a big dude, so you can't just bring him down easily. I mean, he can kind of bowl you over if he wants, or push you off. So, it's a different dynamic of running, but similar to how, and I think that opens up the run game too, because the Austria had Sean Clifford, who had the ability to take off and run. So defense had to respect that, and then in turn that opens things up for Katron and Nick to
you need to at least keep the defense honest. I mean,
yes.
I don't know if you were watching Rutgers Ohio State earlier today. Not that, I mean, Gavin Wimsatt is not a good quarterback at all, and I certainly don't wish that Penn State had that type of offense. But right, just the idea of having a threat at quarterback that can run, gives defenses problems. And once again, 100% would rather have Drew. But every once in a while he is going to have to keep it on those read options. And like we saw last year against Michigan when they were really keying in on the running back, and Clifford finally kept one and went 60 yards or whatever it was. Hopefully we see something similar to that next week. Question for you, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. I know you pointed out rightfully so Nick Singleton's nice kickoff return that was 60 yards and almost taken for a touchdown. How, if you had to divvy up, let's say 25 carries, Penn State running backs get next week, and you can't include like Trey Potts and stuff like that. It's just Singleton or Allen. How are you divvying up those 25 carries? Because, and this hurts me because I was a Singleton guy all of last year. It was definitely a Singleton guy. I thought that after his Rose Bowl performance, people got a little bit too gung-ho on Singleton being better than Allen. Because I think if you would have asked Penn State fans in the offseason who's the better running back, I think it would have been like 75-25 Singleton, if not even higher. I mean,
so you're saying 25 carries to divvy out? I mean,
it's not 50-50 split anymore. I'll tell you that. Like,
no, it's not. I'm thinking at the very least it's 15-10 in favor of Allen. I mean, you still give Singleton some carries. I mean, keep your guys fresh, but
the thing about it against Michigan though, like you have 25 carries. Right, I know what you're saying. Like, keep them fresh.
I'm saying at least 15. Maybe it's more like 17 or 18 for Allen.
That's what I mean. I think it's like 4 out of 5 series you're giving to Allen at this point. Like, really, again, in the second half against Michigan, it's 17-10, it's 21-14, you know, whatever the score is. I have a tough time. I personally have a tough time going to Singleton in those situations.
But
And
also
just knowing, because
the concern, Pat, is you also don't want to reduce Singleton's carries too much to where he gets mad and enters a transfer portal either.
I get that. I want to beat Michigan. That, like,
oh, I understand. I'm just saying, you know, you still got to give Singleton a little bit of run. Like, you can't.
yeah, he gets one
I'm
out
not
of
saying,
every.
I don't treat it like we did when we had Saquon and Miles Sanders and just give Saquon like 95% of the carries, for example. I'm not giving that.
Yeah, but I'm saying in this ball of just the Michigan game, you have 25 carries. I'm giving, I mean,
like a 70-30 at the very, or a 75-25 split percentage
so
wise.
what, at a 25, that would be.
That's like 17, 18 carries for,
Yeah.
I believe.
I mean, I'm not saying anything like you know, that Singleton doesn't get anything at all. I'm saying like 20 carries for K-Tron.
That's be more like 18, 19 carries if I'm doing 75%.
But I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't think. We like again, fourth quarter, 10 minutes to go. Penn State's down by a touchdown. Allen is, you know, what he was doing today, where, you know, he's getting, you know, 6 yards a pop and really running dudes over, and it's looking clean, looking fresh, versus Singleton, who again had 8 carries for 20 yards. It's 2.5 yards per carry. Are we really trotting Singleton out there because it's now his series? Like, I don't know. I'm just right. The idea behind Singleton, and this was even the case last year, right? If you just need yards, if you want to get, you know, 3-4 yards consistent, Allen's probably your guy. Singleton gives you that home run threat. We have not seen that home run threat from Nick Singleton this year. So if you take that away, what exactly is Penn State gaining at a Singleton versus Allen, right? It's almost like taking a 3-point. I don't want to say that he's a 3-point specialist, right? That he's like JJ Redick or Kyle Korver or something like that, because he's a better player than that. But if they're not hitting shots, what exactly are they doing out there for you? I don't know. I was really, really impressed with K-Tron today, and this is as much a, you know, vote of confidence in what K-Tron did and how he's looked, as much as, you know, it's some frustration with Singleton. But I don't know. It's almost like it's almost the feeling I got when I used to watch Ohio State back in the day when they had J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber, and it was like, yes, Mike Weber's coming in. Sweet, we get a J.K. Dobbins series off. Like that's almost what we're getting with Singleton and Allen. And I say all of this just because I want the egg on my face next week when Singleton rips off, you know, 2 6-yard. But I don't know. I was just curious, and maybe.
I mean, I would definitely be giving more carries to Allen at this point. You still got to sprinkle in Singleton here and there, you know, give him a couple series. But I would say the majority of the carries are going to go to K-Tron next week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to look back, and, you know, this is tough to do live, but just like previous game logs, you know, against Ohio State, I think they both had the same amount of carries. And granted, you know, Singleton did come out and you know, have those 2 long runs to begin the game. But yeah, I'm just kind of all in on K-Tron right now. I was really impressed with how he ran today. You know, the power that he has, and again, I thought he looked quick as well, decisive, and you know, whether it's a bit unlucky, because I think it is a bit unlucky with Singleton as well. It's not all on him, but it just feels like the Penn State offense kind of works better when K-Tron's in there. That he's just flat out kind of a better fit for this offense, where they want to run between the tackles, and they don't want to, you know, run off tackle and do stretches and kind of get Singleton, you know, on the outside edge. So I don't know. We can discuss this at a later time. I think we went far long enough on the K-Tron Singleton thing. So yeah, where else do we want to go with this offense? Do we talk about
let's see, we talked about Aller, we talked about, you know, the running game, talked about Cephas stepping up, you know, tight ends. I know I mentioned them briefly, but Theo and Tyler, both 4 catches each, both had a touchdown each. They were very productive in the pass game today, so it was, you know, good to see them get heavily involved. We're going to definitely need them playing like that next week if they're going to beat Michigan. So that's it's definitely up there. Offensive line, I mean, the pass protection initially was pretty shaky. Like, I remember Drew having to scramble out of trouble first couple series, but they settled in eventually. Did a nice job of giving him time to make his throws. But I think those are my only other thoughts about the offense, unless you got something else, Pat.
What'd you think of the bow package? It
Oh yeah,
was
you know what? Yeah,
hit and miss.
I had just I had actually saved a comment here. Can't believe I just forgot that. Argra says, "I'm glad we're finally seeing packages incorporate Bo." Yes, I was glad to see that too. That although Bo seemed to have seemed to develop a nasty habit now of tripping over his own guys. But it was nice that they tried. They threw in a Bo package. I know something that Franklin had talked about in prior press conferences. So it's good to see him finally throw it out there. And yeah, how about that touchdown they ended up scoring out of? He had Drew and Bo in the same in there, and hours lined up in center, and then last second switches over and Bo steps in, under center, and they run basically. I think someone in our Slack channel described it best as the Philly special mixed in with the Chiefs shovel pass. So
yeah, it wasn't quite the Philly special because Aller got the ball back, but yeah, like you said, you got a little Mahomes there with the shovel pass while he's getting tackled. Not the cleanest play in the world. I mean, everybody's making the joke that was like exactly as Yurchich and Franklin drew up, but I mean, it worked, right? It definitely worked, and credit to the offensive lineman there. I mean, it was a passing play anyway, but just not that the play really broke down because it was very quick, so it wasn't like the offensive line would have had much of a chance to get downfield. But the fact that they all did stay behind the line of scrimmage, because when plays get disjointed like that, I think it can be easy to all of a sudden find yourself downfield. But yeah, Theo Johnson just peeled out and he was wide open, and yeah, was a nice play call. I'm personally not expecting to see much Bo next week, like we saw with Tommy Stevens packages in the past.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if he's gonna be tripping over himself like that, that's not going to work against Michigan.
Yeah, and it's just they tried Tommy Stevens 2017. They didn't try it in the Ohio State game. Michigan was a blowout, so I wouldn't really count that. But they did try it against Ohio State in 2018, and both, I want to say there was 2 plays, and neither of them worked. And I'm pretty sure one lost like 8 yards. So I just don't think it's going to be something that we necessarily see against teams that are really, really good defensively, and super, super important situations. And yeah, it certainly did not help that Bo, when he did get out there, tripped either over himself or over an offensive lineman twice. It would be nice if he had a little bit more throwing chops. He definitely is more runner at this point than he is thrower, but that will certainly come along in time. What did you think about the Keandre Lambert-Smith pass? I'm pretty sure that there's a clause in how Brian Ferentz says the 25 points per game in his contract. I think your church has you need to get Keandre Lambert-Smith 10 passing attempts, because we have seen so many attempted wide receiver passes for Keandre Lambert-Smith. And this one, he actually got a pass off, but it was a little bit too far for Warren. How'd you feel about that play call, though?
I mean, I don't mind the call. Just when they called it, though, 3rd and 2. I mean, you're gashing Maryland on the ground. Just feed it to Katron, get the first down.
It was 1st and 10 at that point.
No, it was 3rd and 2.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
I could have sworn it was 1st and 10.
Or am I thinking? No, you know what? I'm sorry. Sorry, I was thinking of a different play. My bad. No, I don't. Yeah, you're right. I don't think it was. I was thinking of something else.
That was on.
It was 1st and 10. You're right.
It was 1st and 10. Okay.
I was thinking of there's another play on 3rd and 2 where they go to pass and Drew, he has pressure coming, but he sees Keandre streaking down the left, so he just throws it up, and Keandre
the slot fade. Yeah.
Yeah, he just couldn't find it. So that's what I was thinking of. No, you're right. This is 1st and 10. I mean, I'm okay with it. It's you're calling on 1st and 10. But just I wish the execution had been better. Wish Keandre had thrown a better ball, because that would have been at the very least a explosive pass play, if not a touchdown. So
I saw some talk on Twitter that it was a tough pass, which yes, it certainly was. He had to throw it far, but it wasn't. Keandre Lambert-Smith, from what I remember, he was a quarterback in high school and clearly has a pretty good arm. So I don't think asking him to throw it, whatever it was, 35 I don't think it was 40 yards. So 30, 35 yards is too crazy. He just kind of short armed it. But, that's also the case of a wide receiver with gloves who's throwing a ball. So I get that part. But I mean, I don't know. I liked it. I made a joke on Twitter that this is how you grade trick plays. If it works, great play call. If it doesn't work, stupidest play call ever. So it's like execution doesn't matter, the play call doesn't matter. It's like either it works or it doesn't work, and that is the entire grade. But I don't know, I kind of liked it.
And you know what? They might have to throw out creative plays like these next week. I mean, Michigan's one of those games you just kind of got to throw the kitchen sink at them. That's your biggest game remaining, and that's the game that if you win, I mean, suddenly everything is on the table still. The Big Ten championship, potential playoff bid. So especially because let's say if Penn State beats Michigan next week and then Michigan goes on to beat Ohio State, that you got that three-way tie scenario coming through. And as of right now, thanks to Illinois upsetting Minnesota today, I think a couple other losses, but Penn State actually owns the Big Ten West tiebreaker over both Michigan and Ohio State. They're combined 8-10. Michigan and Ohio State's West opponents are 7-11. So
yeah, it's gonna be tight.
It's gonna be tight.
Yeah,
and it could be a moot point this time next week, depending on how that game against Michigan goes. But before I think we're probably pretty much done talking about Maryland at this point, unless there's anything else you got. So,
I don't think so. The only thing I want to say, Maryland points, and I'm going to kind of argue with myself here, but I felt like Juricic went away from the run a little bit too much here and there. And once again, in a 51-point game, it can, be kind of crazy to complain about the play calling. And on that same thought, I also understand that I would then be complaining if they just depended on the run, and I would be like, why are we not getting Drew some throws? So, Mike Juricic probably can't win with me no matter what, but I just
a balanced attack today, I thought.
Yeah, I would just hope for next week. And granted, you do need Drew. I don't want the training wheels to be on, but against Ohio State, I feel like he kind of went away from the run a little bit too quickly, and I think he sometimes has a penchant for that. So
I think the training wheels are definitely off Drew at this point.
I hope that is the other thing I want to say. Definitely took some more shots this week, and even though they didn't hit on a ton of them, they're there. Like, that's what's driving me crazy with these, people complain about the wide receivers. And yes, the wide receivers have not been great this year, but in these one-on-one situations, they're open downfield. They're not wide open, but they are open. And Drew has such a big arm that he's able to, stretch the field like that. And right now the cadence is off a little bit, a couple overthrows from Drew, but just the threat of potentially throwing it deep. And I think we even saw today that it helped some of these checkdowns. I know, like, Theo Johnson had a check down that he caught, 5 yards short of the first down marker, but because there was a threat of some deep passes that defenders were not right on top of him, and he's able to make guys miss and pick up, 6-7 extra yards on first down. So just the threat of doing it. It's like if you played a basketball game, and it's like, oh, well, we're not good at shooting threes, so we don't shoot them. It's like, you still need to at least take them when you're open. You got to take them here and there to at least have the threat of it. So all in all, good game. Cannot complain. It's Michigan week now. So,
yep. And before we get into talking about Michigan week, I just want to give a shout out to all you tuning in to us, all 18 of you so far. And welcome, J. William Grimes, became a YouTube member. And shout out to all you Argra, John D'Adamo, Marty, Jiggles the Clowny, Frank Carone 6. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you like what you see, haven't already done so, please hit like and subscribe on the Voice of College Football channel. Also, Mark Rogers, the guy who runs this whole operation, he'll have his weekly late night call-in show tonight starting at 11:30 Eastern. So, got anything more to say about this game or anything else going on in college football? Catch his show starting at 11:30 Eastern tonight. Also, you see on the scrolling down there, we got our Discord channel. If you go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, join a Discord, and chat college football 24/7 in there. And last but not least, blackshadarius.com for your year-round Penn State sports coverage. Still in football season, but basketball's tipping off Monday against Delaware State. The new coaching regime of Mike Rhodes makes its debut. It'll be interesting to see how that goes throughout the season. And of course, we still, wrestling's about to start if they haven't started already. I don't pay attention to wrestling.
They have not started.
They have not started. Okay, thanks. I know hockey started last month. That's ongoing. They're trying to get back to the NCAA tournament.
Women's volleyball, as is tradition, 5-set loss to Nebraska. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, you know what? I'll blame myself. I saw on the Slack channels.
I turned it on for the 5th set. So
I turned it on, I think, in the 3rd set, after someone said, oh, Penn State's up 2-0. And of course, they lost that. And then, so you can blame me for that one. I'm sorry to Coach Colley. But yes, blackshadarius.com. Pat, you'll have your posts up. I got a
random thoughts.
Position grades post tomorrow. Turning points on Monday. But we have plenty of great writers covering football at this point. So check us out there. And, I guess now we can move on to Michigan. I guess this is the part where I announced that Pat and I will be appearing on John DiAdamo's show on Tuesday night, 8:00. He does the Michigan show. So we'll be on there to help preview the Penn State Michigan game. So Pat, before I hit record, I was telling you how, going into today, I was all set to predict Michigan would beat Penn State next week. But after seeing what transpired today, and I know with the caveat that it's Maryland, but seeing what I saw transpire today, and now it's making me think long and hard again about what my prediction is going to be. Like I don't know, legit, I probably won't know what I'm going to predict until we get to next Thursday night.
It's tough. At home, Penn State plays Michigan really well, right? People always look at, James Franklin in the Big House, other than 2020, which we count that as a win. I know in the past I have mentioned the 2020 season didn't happen, but
only the wins count in 2020.
Yes, for every school. Every school's allowed to do that too. That's the beauty of 2020. That's why I love that season.
There are no rules during a pandemic.
So. Only the wins count. Everybody can claim a national championship, except Ohio State. They lost the national championship that year. But other than that, 2020 year, Penn State's obviously had not only issues in the Big House of winning, but even keeping it respectable. It's 2022 was a blowout. 2020 or 2018 was a blowout. 2016 was obviously a blowout. So not great when they go to the Big House, but the beauty of this one is that it's in Beaver Stadium, which does change things. Penn State saw the eventual Big Ten champion Michigan team come in 2021 when they were having a very shaky season where they had just a couple weeks ago had lost to Illinois in 9 overtimes, and they very well, I don't want to say they should have won that game because they did not play all that well, but they were up 21-17 with 3 minutes left when Eric Hall got loose and ran away from the Penn State defense.
Well, that's because Kalen King ran into a teammate, and that just trying to defend the crossing route, and that just gave Eric Hall all the space to run through.
Yeah, but prior to that, right, now I have to go through my years. 2019, Penn State wins at home against Michigan. 2017, Penn State wins at home against Michigan. Even 2015, once again, not a good Penn State team plays that Michigan team in Harbaugh's first year, which was a very good, very solid Michigan team. They play them close. 2013, Penn State wins. So Penn State, generally speaking, plays Michigan well at home. So I don't say it's the only thing that's keeping me somewhat confident-ish, but I don't know. I'm pretty broken from Ohio State still. Maybe it's just because I, wasted 9 hours driving out there and sat there, but you just feel really dumb, and it takes a lot to gain that trust back. So
I feel like this offense has grown since that Ohio State loss, especially in the last 2 weeks. I mean, mean, last week I feel like the way they responded when Indiana tied it up, and then just the way they came out today. And yeah, I know you'll say, well, that's Indiana, that's man, but you know what? Like they weren't this explosive against Illinois and Northwestern, and even like Delaware, UMass. I mean, yeah, they scored like 63 points on them, but they weren't getting a bunch of those explosive plays like they did today, and at the end, towards the end of last week. So that's where I say I think the offense is turning the corner somewhat compared to when they were playing Ohio State.
Yeah, and not for nothing. And I don't mean this as a joke, but it is part of the game. The sign stealing, like that is.
Well, I was gonna get in. I mean, you can't at this point. You can't
It's
talk
in the
about
room, but
Michigan without talking about the sign stealing scandal. And I mean, that's the thing too. I don't know how that's gonna play. Supposedly, I've read things. Apparently, Penn State, like a couple weeks ago, they had to start. I think whenever they first learned about the sign stealing, they changed their signs, and some people were saying that's why they had those couple of brain fart coverages against Indiana last week, from the having different signals. I don't know how true that is, but even this is the thing. Even when you have a food change, like you still it costs time, and you gotta make sure everybody's on the same page with the new signs, and it's not a simple, easy process to just change your signs in the middle of the season, even if you got some advanced notice. Hopefully they've gotten enough advanced notice now that they're settled into the signaling. But we'll see. I think the way this sign thing is going to have a bigger impact, though, is who's going to be on the sideline for Michigan next week. Because I don't know if you saw, I think Pete Thamel tweeted it from yesterday, but he also talked about on game day this morning how it seems likely that Jim Harbaugh is going to get suspended this coming week. And
I have not seen that, really.
That's the rumor right now, that Harbaugh is going to be suspended. So, John is here. Matt Rule is right. We need radio comments. I agree, John. The NFL has been doing it for God knows how long at this point, but
1994, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing it since the 90s. I mean, like, the thing is, though, I think what makes it, and this is the thing with college football, it's not the NFL where you have one centralized league office, 32 teams, they can all, it's easy to get everyone on the same page. They're all going to have the same technology. Here it's going to have to be done on a conference by conference basis. Now, the Big Ten, I mean, they've got oodles of money at this point, so I don't see any reason why they can't adopt this system. And I think
at this point, you just need the Big Ten, SEC, and right, if the Pac-12 or Pac-12's not around anymore, but the Big 12 and ACC don't want to do it, it's like, okay, well,
yeah, like, have fun being further left in the dust, I guess. But I think it's definitely time for to get it with modern technology with the headsets and all, with quarterbacks and all that. So yeah, apparently I think I read somewhere that all the non-playoff game, I don't know if New Year's Six is included, but I think all the non-playoff and New Year's Six bowl games, they're going to experiment with with radio communication headsets. So for the quarterback, so that'll be interesting to watch. It's kind of like in college basketball, when like the NIT, they've experimented with certain rules which eventually get incorporated throughout all of college basketball next year, like with the increased 3-point line, with 30-second shot clock, things like that. So this would be like one of those things you're going to see with bowl games, non-playoff New Year's Six bowl games, being grounds for such experimentation. And I know I'm kind of just talking in circles now, but I agree, John. I think that's where we're headed. That's what we should hopefully starting next year start adapting. So things like this don't happen in the future. But going back to the game itself, though, it'll be interesting to see. We don't know if Jim Harbaugh is going to be on the sidelines next week, and if he's not, who's going to be running the show. or how much of an effect it's going to have on the team. Where's their, are they going to be distracted? Or are they going to just like be able to put it aside and just be like, all right, guys, it's us against the world. Let's go out there and just win the whole damn thing. So, what, I guess, what are your thoughts? Do you think, if Harbaugh were suspended, how much do you think that affects Michigan going into the game?
The thing, I mean, you have to say a lot, right? I mean, Harbaugh's a really good coach. They had 3 games to begin the season. I think it was the first 3 games, not 2 games. 3 games to begin the season where they coached without Harbaugh, and I mean they took care of business, but it was East Carolina and UNLV and team that I can't recall at this point. But yeah, I mean as far as a Penn State fan, yeah, as far as a Penn State fan, I would say that I'm rooting for justice is what I'm rooting for. I don't root for Michigan or against Michigan. I'm simply rooting that justice is served. And I personally think that Jim Harbaugh not coaching against Penn State would be justice. In fact, I would be down with Penn State just getting the win. Michigan, sorry, you cheated, and now you have to give Penn State the win. If that's what the Big Ten thinks justice is. So I would be down with that. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a weird game because you don't ever have to think about usually heading into the week of the game being like, 1, will the signs have been stolen? And 2, will the head coach coach the game? That usually doesn't enter into the the thinking of how a game is going to go. So if I don't bet on Penn State games to begin with because I can't be completely biased or unbiased rather. I don't even know how you would bet on this game, knowing that Michigan going to Penn State, it's going to be a good crowd. Fortunately, big noon kickoff, but whatever. Who knows? I mean, Michigan has looked really good post when all this has come out. Granted, it has been against Michigan State, who is doggy doo-doo, and against Purdue, who's also doggy doo-doo. So I don't give like a lot of credence to, oh, they're blowing out these bad teams. Like, well, yeah, you probably didn't need to know their plays to beat them, but yeah, I mean, it's such a weird game. It's such a weird game, just given everything that's been going on. Because it feels like every single day, it's like something new comes out. It's like, oh, Connor Stallions went to these games. Oh, Connor Stallions is paying his friends to go to these games. Oh, Connor Stallions dressed up as the Central Michigan coach and was wearing sunglasses on the sidelines that take video, like, just wild stuff. So I don't really know what to expect or what to think, but just from an on the field perspective, I try to take all that stuff away. I can't say I'm that confident in Penn State. And maybe it's just because I've been burned too many times. And maybe it's also the case of it's only Saturday and we have a full week and I will talk myself into it by then. But yeah, can't say I'm super, super confident, but this is just a weird game to begin with.
It's kind of where I'm at. I mean, that's why I say like, I'm now after today just waffling on what my prediction is going to be. Because initially I thought, yeah, even with the whole cheating scandal thing, like Michigan just better in key areas than Penn State. But, the way the offense has looked in the last, we'll say 5 quarters, to be fair. And the defense seems to have recovered from, that first half against Indiana, cleaned up those miscommunication issues.
Well, even going back to, sorry, not to cut you off, but even going back to last year, right? Penn State played poorly everywhere, but specifically, right, the big takeaway from that game was that Penn State can't stop the run. This year, that has not been a problem. And granted, they have not faced a team like Michigan that has had the success running the ball that they have, especially these last 2 seasons. But West
Virginia has had the most success running it on Penn State this year. But that's because they have if you're going to run it on, I think the interior of the D line is where to attack them at. That's where like West Virginia's biggest strength was the middle of the O line, and they had a big, converted tight end to running back, C.J. Donaldson. They could just pound it with him and pick up some yardage. So I'd say like they're the only team that's had any tangible success on the ground thus far.
Yeah. And even West Virginia, I mean, I would have to go back and look, but right, they weren't exactly gashing Penn State. There was a couple
Not
plays.
gashing, but they ripped off a few decent runs. And again, their quarterback Green could, he was definitely a slippery one to take down.
Well, that is kind of the X factor against Michigan. I think that JJ McCarthy, despite the fact that his 3-interception game against Bowling Green was very funny, he has, I think, clearly taken a step forward as as a quarterback.
Right now, he's 6 of 8, 102 yards against Purdue right now. Now, I know you say that's Purdue, but of course, he's he's doing what he should against the bad teams. So,
no, I think he's pretty clearly the best quarterback in the Big Ten. I mean, obviously, we love Drew here, but I think he did give the edge to JJ McCarthy, especially just because he is.
You have to.
He's a good runner too. I mean, he's not Michael Vick back there, but he's certainly like Pat Mahomes-esque, where if he has a lane, he can get pick up 20 yards if he really needs to. He has the chops running. So, no, I mean, Michigan, sign stealing or not, and that's going to be part of it. But sign stealing or not, they're a very good team. Clearly, they're a very good team, and it's going to take a really, really good game from Penn State on all fronts to beat them. So, because of that, because I'm still badly burned from the stupid Ohio State game, hard for me to be too confident. But we'll see. Hopefully, there's some magic in the air, and man, that 3-way Big Ten West tie could come into effect, which just would be the funniest. Yeah. Just with these division ending, Big Ten West deciding who is the Big Ten East champion.
Well, Pat, I was telling people all offseason long, like it wouldn't surprise me if Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan all went 11-1, and all their losses were to each other. So you get that crazy tiebreaker scenario coming into effect. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe this time a week from now we'll be on full tiebreaker watch.
I was going to say that maybe it would almost be better to not get the tiebreaker, but then I remembered that, oh no, you just have to play like Minnesota or Illinois or, whatever. I guess maybe is Iowa back in the driver's seat? Iowa in the Big Ten West championship?
I have to look at. Actually, I can pull up the Big Ten.
I think Iowa is, because Wisconsin lost today, Minnesota lost today, and Minnesota would have a tiebreaker over Iowa. I think it would have to be Iowa. I believe Iowa ended up winning. Did they win 7-0?
Iowa is on. They won 10-7. Iowa is currently in the driver's seat of 4-2. Then Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin are all 3-3. So Iowa is currently back in the driver's seat in the West. Yeah, Nebraska, who
they let one get away against Michigan State today.
That's a game they had no business losing, frankly, to a Sparty team that seemed to be in quit mode.
Yeah.
And now I think they host. Maryland goes to Nebraska next week, which I have to imagine Sicko's committee has that at least on a Sicko's watch list or something, or maybe Sicko's warning, because Nebraska is desperately trying to get that. Two teams desperately trying to get that 6th win to be bowl eligible. Maryland in total free fall, and then Nebraska, who thought was going to get that 6th win today at Michigan State, now suddenly, they got 3 games left to try and get that 6th win, and none of them are gimmies. I mean, Maryland, and then I think they play at Wisconsin, and then they go and they host Iowa.
It certainly looks like Iowa's in a pretty good position because they have the tiebreaker over Wisconsin. They still have to play at Nebraska, which very well could be.
That could potentially be what decides the Big Ten West,
Which is very okay. So so Nebraska does have Maryland at home and then at Wisconsin. So that I mean, I could have said any 2 teams there, and it's clearly not an easy route for Nebraska, but that would be interesting. Anyway, my point is that, yes, clearly Penn State would want to win the tiebreaker. This is not like the SEC where it's like, oh, you might have to face the number 8 team in the country in the SEC championship game. It's like, no, you just get 7-5 Iowa with, soon to be released or fired, whatever the terminology is, Brian Ferentz. So, yeah, let's hope that the tiebreaker works out for us. But first and foremost, got to take care of business against Michigan, which, it's obviously a very tall task.
Take care of it. Yeah. And we're excited to talk with John on his show this coming Tuesday, 8:00. Really, we'll get more in depth about, the matchups to look for and what dynamics will be in play. What will it take for Penn State to win, or, Michigan to win. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. I'm sure John is too. Pat, any anything else I want to get off your chest before we call tonight?
I want to give some shout outs to individual players on the defense. I feel like we didn't, really point at anyone defensively just because everybody played, so well, because you have 6 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. And I believe it's 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. So, right. Obviously it was not just one person, but I thought that Abdul Carter played his best game of the season by far. He was really, really good out there. Not like gaudy stats, 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, but I mean, was his first sack since the West Virginia game, and 2 others that he, very well could have got sacks there. So really nice game from him. Also almost had a pick 6, but really nice game for him. Adisa Isaac is just fantastic. Another sack. I believe that's 6.5 now for him this year. So, he has a decent chance of ending with, at least 8 sacks, which I think is really, really nice for him and his NFL hopes, as, he'll be in the draft this coming season. Excuse me. Curtis Jacobs, 1.5 tackles for loss. He's been fantastic this year as well. Now that he's back at his Sam linebacker position, looks much more comfortable in space and doing things there. We did mention Tony Rojas with the strip sack and the interception on back-to-back possessions for the true freshman. Penn State is pretty well set at linebacker this year, so we weren't going to see a ton of him, but it's nice to see him get out there and make some plays. And just because I'm the only one of the few left on Hakeem Beeman Island, he did have a sack today. So thank you, Hakeem. I still believe in you. And just a great day for Penn State football.
Yes, indeed. And on that note, thanks for joining us once again. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on here next week after the Penn State Michigan game, win or lose. So, and of course, check us out Tuesday night, John's show, John Adamo's show on the Michigan channel. I'm sure John might correct us afterwards, but I believe there's a Michigan channel. We used to have a Penn State channel here in Voice College Football, but that unfortunately went away. So, but we're excited to talk with John some more about this game, and we'll catch you all then.